equity, inclusion under the sun. And I had somebody point, out to me how much I use my hands. And I will tell you, y'all, that's not going to change. I keep using my hands. I am super, super excited to be joined by Enna Jimenez. Nope, Jimenez. We were talking about names and how important names are. And I feel really honored that you're spending the time. You were just named by Leading Latinas as one of the top Latina voices in business, and we can talk more about that. Introduce yourself first, and then let's jump in.
Sure. Thank you, Maureen, for inviting me today to this event. So my name is Enna Jimenez. Latina, born in Puerto Rico, parents from Dominican Republic. I've been in IT and technology now for almost 30 years. And my passion has really been around leading and transforming teams. And I specifically also try to focus on diversity and inclusion as my additional work. Currently today, I work at IDEMIA, and I heading up their quality assurance group, focus on the civil identity business unit.
So a 30-year career in tech as a Latina. Let's talk about what that trajectory has looked like. And how you got from point A to point B. Because it's one thing to be a woman in tech, but to be a woman of color, to be a Latina in tech, what's the secret sauce here?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. I mean, we can talk about this for hours, right? I'll try to condense. First I'll start off by saying, I went to Simmons University here in the Boston area. Didn't really know what I was going to do, but I majored in computer science and Spanish. And luckily, one of my teachers who's still there today, she, contacted one of her colleagues and was able to get an internship at a software firm in Cambridge. And that was really the start of it, right? Luckily, they hired me full-time after I graduated. And then I went on and had a good 10, 12 years in the software development, and all from doing automation, development, project management, a little bit of all that. But it took me about 10 years before I realized, I can actually make a career out of this. Like, I like it, because you don't always know going in, right? You're like, okay, it's a job and you're just doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talk with so many young people who are just starting out saying you take those first jobs to just understand what you like, what you don't like, what your skills are, get all the training you can. I always say, right? Yeah. Get all the training you can.
Absolutely.
I want to jump back to something that I think is really critical, because I've seen this be a launch point for so many careers, and it's that first internship. How did you secure that first internship, and what can we all take in terms of best practices around internships and how critical I think they are, particularly for folks from underrepresented groups, whether that's women, LGBTQ, people with disabilities, BIPOC. I think internship is this launch point that's so fundamental to a launch of a good career.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Maureen. And like I mentioned, right, my professor was critical in making that introduction and making that happen. And so, I do think that today these internships are pivotal and critical. And you have organizations like the one that I'm super passionate about, which is ALPHA, the Association of Latino Professionals for America, who partners up with different colleges and then partners up with different companies, corporations that really want to make an impact and really want to, focus on the Latino talent. And so we take the students that are part of our student chapters and these corporations, and we match them up. And we create a number of different opportunities for our college students to have these internships. Last year, as you know, we all had to pivot because of COVID. One of the things that the Alpha National Group did was create these fellowship programs where corporations were able to create a specific project. They would have a cohort of students that they would bring on, and then they would run through creating a real project that was impacting the bottom line for that company. That provided a number of different of opportunities. One, it gave the company to get to know these students that they would not have had access to and known before. But two, it also gave these students an opportunity to know what is it like to be in an environment working for this company, right? And doing a real project, a tangible project that was meaningful to the company, right? So they had to get their work done because it was important to the organization. Right. And so those are the type of things and the type of programs that Alpha is able to do. I was leading the Boston chapter for about 3 years when I was president. And now I'm part of the national board. So I'm excited to now be able to take everything that we did at the Boston level and help the Alpha National Organization apply to all of our members. And just to let you know, Maureen, the Alpha organization is very similar to many others, right? Well, there is the National Black MBA group, right? There is the National Asian American Association. So there's a number of organizations, there's Prospanica, that we're all out here servicing our different members. And our goal is really to try to connect with as many corporations as possible to give you that pipeline. Look, if there's one thing I've heard so much from corporations is we can't find them. We cannot find the students. We cannot find the professionals. It kills me. Yeah. It kills me every time I hear that, because you know what? We have them. They are there. Absolutely. They're very talented and they can absolutely deliver and do the work.
Yeah, I that one is the one that if you want to like make the hair on the back of my neck stand up, tell me it's a pipeline issue. No, yeah, you're not. I would say you're not looking in the right, there's plenty of talent. You're just not looking in the right place. And I think we'll make sure that we put the link to the organization, both in the comments here. And then I should mention this, we always transcribe and have transcriptions and put this up on the Moxie Exchange site as well. Nice. We usually have it up within a week or two, so we'll post it there as well.
Okay.
Okay, so those first critical internships, then let's talk about, I mean, because it was just women's payday, right? But that's for white women, right? We know Latinas, I believe October.
Yes, it is.
Equity. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about this, Enna, like how then you got that first internship, you came in, you realized you like tech, and you can make a career of it. How have you then navigated to a place where you are a leading Latina?
So, great question. I mean, it's certainly been a lot of work, right? Oftentimes I'll tell people, they're like, Enna, what do you think about when you walk into a room full of white male, which for those that are in technology, that's what you get every single day, right? You walk into a room full of white male. And so how do you conquer that? How do you navigate that, right? And my answer to that is, I am very strong, and I believe that I've worked really hard. I've studied, I've applied everything that I've learned to the various roles that I've been at. And because of that experience, I shouldn't say because of that, I lead with that experience, right? I'm very confident in what I know. And so that allows me to walk in, sit in this room, and influence and drive decisions and lead projects and get us to where we need to get to, right? And I'm aware that doesn't come easy to everyone. As you know, the new saying now is we're trying to find a seat at the table, right? But if there isn't a table that there's an open seat, then just create a new table and invite all your friends to it and make that the table that everyone wants to go to, right?
Yeah,
so how do we do that? We do that by lifting others. We do that by creating opportunities, by connecting. If there's one thing that I've done a lot throughout my career is just be a builder, be a networker. And just communicate and talk to people and truly build relationships. A story that I like to share because it really mimics who I am. A number of years ago, I started at this organization, and it was a pretty big wealth investment organization. And I remember there was this newsletter that came out, and all I read was I'm Cuban American. So there's a person that wrote an article, and he mentioned in that article that he's Cuban American. I didn't really focus on anything else other than the fact that he said he's Cuban American. I was like, oh my God, I'm Enna Jimenez. I just joined the company. Let's have coffee. let me tell you, we had an amazing coffee. We had an amazing time. He ended up being my biggest champion, my biggest sponsor in that organization. He ended up putting me in places that people were like, how is Enna involved in that? How is Enna talking to the CEOs, to the managing directors, to all these people? And it was all because a simple, hi, I'm Enna, let's have coffee, let's connect. And he reciprocated that. And we connected on the fact that we were both Latinos. um, and that's how it starts, right? You have these relationships, you build these conversations because you find something in common. And it's not because I went out looking for something in return, because people always ask me, well, Anna, when you have all these meetings, are you going to them because you want something? I said, no. Every single meeting that I have with someone, my instincts and the first thing I do is, what can I do for you?
Yeah.
How can I help you?
Yeah.
If that later on changes into you being able to help me in something else, awesome. But that's really not what I'm focused on. I'm focused on, what can I do for you? And honestly, Maureen, that's the way I've been leading my entire career. That is what I do for everyone, for people that report to me, my colleagues. That is how I lead, and that is how I wake up and think about everything that I'm going to do. How can I help the next person?
Well, and you said something that's like, I'm a builder, right? I'm additive. So I think when you're coming into a situation and you're additive, I would say one of the career misses that I often see, um, particularly with women, is we forget to build that network
Mm,
and to understand the right. Just keep giving little things,
mhm.
with no right, just because it's fun for one, right? It's fun to be a builder and to be additive. But sometimes it's like, oh, I'm just so busy. I'm doing all these things. I'm doing all these. And what you were saying, like that network and being open to those conversations. I also think one of the things to be aware of is understand influence.
Mhm.
Things don't happen in a vacuum. So really understand how do decisions get made here? What does a career trajectory look like here, so that you can be intentional about it instead of like letting your career happen to you. You're
Yes.
actually building your career. And you
And
talked about a key relationship there, right? You said that he was a mentor and a sponsor.
mhm.
And we know that mentors and sponsors open doors and how critical they are for underrepresented groups.
Absolutely. And Maureen, a key thing, just from an advice perspective, right? I always remind my mentees to say, when you walk in that door, the first day on your first job, you have to assume that you have accomplished and completed everything that was in that job description. And from day one, your focus is on delivering towards that promotion, right? So, I get folks who are like, well, I've done it, after a year, I've done this and this and this and this. This is what my job description is. And I'll say, great, you've met your job. How can I give you a promotion? You know what? I'm only going to give you a promotion when you have met your job extremely well, but you've also gone above and beyond and done those things extremely well. So my advice is always, day one, you should be executing at the next job level. That's what you should be doing, because when you do that from day one, that's going to guarantee you a promotion. But if you're just executing at the role that you walked into, you're going to do fine, but you're not going to work towards that promotion. And unfortunately, you have to advocate for yourself. You have to be able to say, hey, what can I do? How can I, take some initiatives, and constantly ask your managers, but pay attention to what the organization is doing. Every organization shares their goals, shares their mission, and ask yourself, how does my work impact the bottom line? And if you cannot directly draw a line, then you have to realize that there's something that needs to pivot and needs to change. Maureen, I've done that in every single company that I've been at, right? Go in there the first 4 months. I'm learning, evaluating, listening, right? But I'm also connecting to the company's mission and to their vision, and trying to figure out, how do I play a role in their goals? What can Enna do that is going to get them closer to where they want to be? And when I identify that and connect that and create visibility and branding around the things that I'm doing that is impacting the bottom line, that's when you get seen. That's when you can get more visibility. And that's when promotions occur.
Oh, so amazing. And I have to say, your mentees are so lucky to have you. Uh, I know that
Thank
you
you.
leave a trail of people that are climbing the ladder. So that's what a legacy. Um, One of the other things that I'll often recommend is think about what's your learning and growth plan. So
Mm,
if I'm growing into that next thing, what are the skills, what are the experiences that I need to have to
yeah,
position me for that? So not
absolutely.
only how am I delivering, but what do I need to learn?
Mhm. And taking the time to learn, right? I mean, I've had employees who'll come to me and they'll be like, well, I'm trying to get this project done. You said that I should learn how to do XYZ. Well, when should I do it? Should I go and tell the project manager that I need less hours in the project? And I looked at them and said, if you want to grow and you want to learn, then guess what? You're doing this on your own time. You are, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't take away from the fact that companies should offer leadership training and and training in general. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have that, right? But you got to take control of your own growth. And you can't expect an organization to give all of that to you. I am a firm believer in self-learning. I've attended number of conferences, number of summits. In quality assurance, we got a huge market over in the UK world, and they'll have conferences that, start at 10 o'clock Eastern time and they'll run through, 6 o'clock in the morning. And guess what? I will join those. And then I'm going to, roll right over and dial into a work meeting. But that's my way of learning because to me, that's important. So if you're not willing to add and put in that extra step, that extra little thing to make you stronger, then why should the company do more?
Mm,
Right? You have
yeah.
to meet them halfway. To me, that's so important.
Well, and it's an investment in yourself, right? You're betting on
Absolutely.
yourself, investing in yourself. So let's talk about this award you just received.
So, the Hispanic Executive Magazine, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's a very, well-known magazine, and they put out both the digital and a print magazine. And I just received the printed version a few days ago. And I have to tell you, my daughter opened the package. And she was like, Mom, you got something. I was like, I wasn't expecting anything. And so she's flipping through this book because at that moment, it still had not synced in that I was going to be in that magazine. So she's flipping through the pages and then she comes to my page. She's like, Mom, you're in this magazine. Her and I looked at each other and we just screamed. Like people must have thought something was happening in my house. And the two of us yelled at the top of our lungs, like, Mom is in this magazine. How crazy is that? But Maureen, honestly, it's humbling. It truly, truly is. It's an honor to be amongst these many amazing, amazing leading Latinas. This is my great, great friend, Betty Francisco. And to be with the likes of Jessica Alba, Julissa Calderon, whom is an Afro-Latina who is making things happen for herself. And I adore her. My daughter and I watch everything she does. She has this amazing Netflix show called Gentefied that was totally doing promotion there. But anyways, it's amazing. So if you haven't watched it, you absolutely should watch it. Gentefied on Netflix. But to be amongst these amazing group of women, I, I have no words. It's honestly just a blessing. And I think of how did I get here, right? I mean, I have hardworking parents who came here from Puerto Rico. When we first came to Boston, we had nothing. We lived in an old abandoned house with nothing. It was a burned down house, and that's how we spent our first 2 weeks. And to have gone from that to being able to provide for my family, for my kids as a single mom, working really hard, navigating the corporate world, going against so many things. I mean, to try to break through this glass ceiling, it's not easy. Have I broken through it yet? No, I don't think I have. Have I started to shatter it a little bit? Yes, for sure. And I do all of this because I want to be a role model. I am thankful for the amazing women, men and women in my life that have opened doors for me and provided opportunities, guidance, advice when I needed it the most. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here today. And so I try to do the same thing for others as well. And so just to be recognized for what I love doing, like I said, because I feel like I'm just helping someone, it's there's just no words to describe that feeling.
Well, and I'm so thankful the timing of this that we were able to have you on just as this acknowledgement came out, because it's really extraordinary. So you've talked about everything from the internship to understanding and connecting what you're doing every day back to the strategy, positioning yourself and get, a do it to yourself project in terms of learning and growth and positioning for what's next, being open to any meeting conversation, going in there with a give first attitude and being additive and a builder. Boy, it's a lot, right? These are all so incredible. We talked a little bit about mentorship and sponsorship, and I would love for you to dig in a little bit more on that. You had that first thing where you said, I just asked for coffee, because people will often say to me like, Mo, how do you do this? Do you go and you ask somebody to be your sponsor? No. Right?
Definitely not.
But you asked for that coffee.
Right.
So would you talk about how you've developed some of these relationships, and sort of what's worked, and if you've made mistakes?
Oh, absolutely. Look, it's certainly never easy, right? There was a period of time, especially when I was president of Alpha, that I wanted to be available to all of my members. So whenever people reached out to me to have coffee, I just did. Listen, there's a time when people were like, well, who do you work for? Is it for your organization or is it for Alpha? Because it feels like you're doing a lot more for Alpha. And I have to admit, that I certainly was a challenging time during my work, my real job, because I was spending a bit more time in Alpha and not necessarily neglecting my job, but, presence is also important, right? And so that to me is an area of where I had a bit of an imbalance and I needed to readjust. And that was a learning. A learning time for me, right?
Right.
And
But
so
like giving too much, right? Because that's
exactly
possible. It's possible to give so much that you got nothing left.
right,
And then you're doing
burnout,
yeah.
you burn out. But to come to your question though, I approach everyone that reaches out to me with let me hear your story. Tell me about you. And as they're telling me their story, I can connect with some of the things that they're saying. And then I'll try and offer, in return, here's my story. And these are the struggles that I've had. And this is where other people have helped me. This is how I can help you. And when just in that give and get, conversation, you let that build. Eventually, through as that relationship continues. And there were some people that I would meet, twice a month. There were some people that I would meet every other month or even once a quarter or, once every 6 months. But it was about how did you take advantage of that conversation, right? You can't focus on everything. So I try to pick one or two things that were the main things that I was going to talk about with that individual. And as I had my conversations with different, mentors, and I focused on different areas. So I didn't talk about the same thing with everyone. That way I felt like I'm getting advice from multiple different people on multiple different things, and then I can take that and apply it. There definitely were times where maybe I wasn't as responsive, where someone was literally offering me a hand and I just had too much stuff going on and I wasn't as responsive. And then when I really wanted to reach out to that person, they weren't there.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Because they were
It
like,
felt like
I opened the door, right? You didn't walk
and I did.
through. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's a way, or, that's one way where I can tell you that, again, another lessons learned, right? You have to be serious about following up, and, sometimes you need to be able to say, you know what, I can't meet with you until 2 months, because I already knew that I had been setting up these other conversations with these other folks, and I needed to do follow up on those, and I did not have time to introduce a new conversation.
Yeah, I love that. And I love being really intentional about what do I want to get out of this conversation?
Yes.
And the
Yes.
idea that you've had multiple mentors and sponsors, not just the one.
Oh, absolutely. And a new thing, Mo, is the whole thought process around champions, right? I had a conversation with the amazing group of women last month where we're talking about the notion of a champion, right? Who's that champion? And we talk so much about mentors and sponsors and the criticality behind that, right? But you ultimately also need champions. And the one thing that we urge, and I really exuded it to everyone in that call, was, who are you championing? Who
Mhm.
are you opening a door for? Who
Yeah.
are you inviting to your table? Right? I'm sure all of us oftentimes see emails that says, we have a job opening over here. Can please share this with your network? How many people actually share with their network? How many times do you scroll through LinkedIn and you're looking at something that catches your eye and you're like, oh my God, this might not be good for me, though this might be good for someone else, and you actually share it?
Yeah.
How many times do we do that? Sometimes we may put a comment, but do we share it? Do we actually, connect other folks to those opportunities? And to me, that's what it means to be a champion. When you are taking it on yourself to open doors, to create those pathways for those individuals that really need it. And really coming back to your community. I just recently got voted on to be part of the Big Brothers Big Sisters Association, and I'm super excited to be on that board as well. But why? And my daughter had asked me, Mom, why are you joining this? So, well, I grew up in Dorchester here in Boston, which is a small, town. And it's a town that is primarily Black and Brown individuals. And that's where I grew up. I'm able to say, what can I do to give back to that community that gave so much to me? And this is one way for me to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to get involved. I'm going to get connected, collaborated, and figure out how I can bring everything that I know into that community that so much needs, into that and many other communities that so much need of people like us.
Oh my gosh, this has been so extraordinary. I want to ask you a very, very specific question before we wrap up. Let's talk about language. Let's talk about Hispanic, Latina, Latinx, right? Because this is, it's one, we've included it in the app, right? Here's some of the history, here's some of the, I want to hear what you have to say about it, because language is so important.
It is, Mo, and it's definitely been an evolution. I
Yeah.
can tell you that I know that I've been through this evolution along with the rest of the world. There was certainly the early part of my career where I would tell people I'm Hispanic. I'm Hispanic, I'm from Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, right? That's my root, that's my culture, and that's who I am. But then there was definitely a time where that shifted, and I started to say, I'm Latina, super proud. I am 100% Latina, right? And that just came out with, I don't know, a little bit more oomph, a little bit more like, yes, this is who I am. And today, I actually say I'm an Afro-Latina proud woman, right? And I carry I share it that way. So as you can tell, first I said Hispanic, I didn't really add a lot more things with it. Then I said Latina with the excitement behind that. But then I added, when I talk about being Afro-Latina, that just comes with a lot more adjectives, right? And that's because now I feel like I can truly embrace myself, not just for my race, but my culture and my ethnicity and everything together in that one word, Afro-Latina. Right. To me, that says it all. I embrace my race. I think that it's important for all of us to do that. And I will say that something that does bothers me, and I think a lot of us Afro Latinas, we're in the same boat. there's a lot of efforts out there and tremendous efforts by a lot of people to include Hispanic and Latinas, but we are sometimes forgetting the Afro-Latina. And here's the thing, as much as we're saying and presenting, Latinas, when you forget those that look like me, then my kids and our children that look like me still feel that there's no one that looks like us. Right. And so when I get included in the list like I am today, along with like Julissa Calderon, right, to be able to see women that look like us when we're talking about a group of Latina women, that to me just goes even further. Right. So we have to make sure that diversity includes in all angles, in all places, and not just from one sphere.
Yeah, because we're so multidimensional, right? And so, well, and I recently read, and I wish I could remember where it was from, Enna, that only 3% of people identify as Latinx, right? But like there's been this whole Latinx, and it's like that's actually not for 97% of people that identify, like that is not inclusive language for them.
It's it's a controversial thing. My daughter is a junior at UMass Amherst, and she's Latinx. That's who she is. Right. And so it's about being inclusive, and it doesn't necessarily roll from my tongue as easily because I'm older, right? And so I'm so used to now talking Afro-Latina or Latina that it sometimes becomes a little harder to remember to always use the Latinx. But I do try to be intentional about using it because it is important. It is still being about inclusive, and we want to give a voice to everyone. And we want to make sure that those who do not represent or feel connected to Latina or Latino, that they also know that we are including them. It's the same thing as I mentioned about being Afro-Latina and feeling included and seen. Right? Yeah. It's the same thing. This is just a different way of representing it. And that's why it is important. And there's been a lot of different surveys done on this. You got if you do this survey on like the college campuses, and I would say that there's even differences between the East Coast and the West Coast, right? You're going to get different parts, but it is real. When I know that I'm speaking to students specifically and directly, I definitely I'm intentional about using Latinx because that's important.
There's even some generational stuff, and I wish I might like get a tattoo across my forehead that just says "ask." Right, like that's always what works for you isn't going to work for me, isn't going to work for them, isn't going to work. Right, like it's so language is so it's so personal.
We have to stop generalizing.
Yeah. Okay, leave me with one last truth bomb from this amazing conversation about your amazing life and career and everything that you're doing. Hit me with one last thing, Enna.
Oh my gosh. I didn't know. I know you told me to think about that. I don't even know what to say. I mean, look, maybe I think I'll do it this way. There's a couple of lessons learned and tips that I always like to leave my audience with, which to me, I think goes a lot further, right? So, take control of your career. That's super important. Be the owner of your career, whatever that may be in whatever shape and form that is, right? Advocate for yourself. It's so important for everyone to advocate for yourself. Do not sit back and wait for someone else to pat you on your shoulders and roll out that red carpet for you. You must speak up for yourself. And then, success comes when you're passionate about what you're doing. That could not be any more true. I've lived my life on passion. I have, especially when it comes to diversity, inclusion, women, our young generation. I am super passionate about creating opportunities for all of them. And that is who Enna is.
Oh my gosh. I hope at some point we get to meet in person.
Yes. We must. Mo, thank you for this opportunity. I've enjoyed talking with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Everything that you shared, y'all, if you need to watch this again and again and again, because this is how to run a career and a life. So, Enna, thank you.
Thank you, Mo.